Yashodanandanam Braja Janaranjana Yamunatira Chari Yamunatira Chari Jai Jai Radha Madhava Gopi Janavallabha Giribharadhari Yashodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana Yashodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana Yashodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana Yamunatira Chari Yamunatira Chari Jai Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Rama Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare परमहंस प्रयोजकाचार्य अष्टोत्तर शतशिशमद ऐसी भक्ति वेदांत स्वामी श्रील प्रभुपाद की स्वयं विष्णुपाद परमहंस प्रयोजकाचार्य अष्टोत्तर शतशिशमद भक्ति सिद्धांत सरस्वती ठाकुर श्रील प्रभुपाद की आनंद कोटि वैष्णविंद की नामाचार्य श्री हरिदास ठाकुर की प्रेम से कहो श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवास आदि गौर भक्तविंद की श्री श्री राधा कृष्ण गोप गोविनाथ श्यामकुंड राधकुंड गिरि गोवर्धन की मथुरा धाम की गंगा माई की यमुना माई की तुलसी देवी की भक्ति देवी की समवेद भक्तविंद की all glories to some devotees Hare Krishna all glories to some devotees Hare Krishna all glories to Guru and Gauranga all glories to Srila Prabhupada Krishna Prashtavadala Shrimate Bhakti Vikasa Swami Tane Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Okay, reading from Canto 3, Chapter 4, text number 4. Okay, Aham Chokto Bhagavata Prapanna Arti Harena Ha Badrim Badari Tvam Payahi Iti Sakulam Sanjihirshuna Aham Chokto Bhagavata Prapanarti Harenaha Badarim Tvam Prahahiti Sakulam Sanjihirshuna Aham Chokto Bhagavata Prapanarti Harenaha Badaring Tvam Prayahiti Sakulam Sanjihirshuna Aham Chokto Bhagavata Prapannati Harenaha Badaring Tvam Prayahiti Sakulam Sanjihirshuna Chokto Bhagavata
Prapannati Harenaha Badarim Tvam Prayahiti Swakulam Sanjihirshuna Aham Chokto Bhagavata Prapannati Harenaha Badarim Tvam Prayahiti Sakulam Sanjihirshuna
Swakulam Sanjihirshuna.
Aham Chokto Bhagavata.
Aham Chokto Bhagavata.
Prapanarthi Harenaha.
Prapanarthi Harenaha.
Badarim Tvam Prayahiti.
Badarim Tvam Prayahiti.
Swakulam Sanjihirshuna.
Swakulam Sanjihirshuna. Aham Chokto Bhagavata. Aham Chokto Bhagavata. Prapannati Harenaha. Badarim Tvam Prayahiti.
Badarim Tvam Prayahiti.
Swakulam Sanjihirshuna.
Swakulam Sanjihirshuna.
Aham Chokto Bhagavata.
Aham Chokto Bhagavata.
Prapannati Harenaha.
Prapannati Harenaha.
Badarim Tvam Prayahiti.
Badarim Tvam Prayahiti.
Swakulam Sanjihirshuna.
Swakulam Sanjihirshuna. Okay, Mataji's.
Aham Chokto Bhagavata.
Prapannati Harenaha. Badarim Tvam Prayahiti. Swakulam Sanjihirshuna. Aham Chokto Bhagavata. Prapannati Harenaha.
Badarim Tvam Prayahiti.
Swakulam Sanjihirshuna.
Aham, I, Cha, and Uktaha was told, Bhagavata, by the Supreme Lord, Prapanna, of the surrendered, Arti Harena, by he who is the vanquisher of the distresses, Ha, indeed, Badarim, to Badari, Tvam, you, Prayahi, should go, Iti, thus, Sakulam, his own family, Sanjihirshuna, who desired to destroy. Translation of report by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Purport. Translation and purport. Okay, the Lord is the vanquisher of the distress of one who is surrendered unto Him. Thus he who desired to destroy his family told me previously to go to Badrikashrama. Purport. While at Dwarka, Uddhava was warned to avoid the distresses which were to follow the disappearance of the Lord and the destruction of the Yadu dynasty. He was advised to proceed to Badrikashrama because there he could associate with devotees of Naranarayana, and in their association of devotion service, he could increase his eagerness for chanting, hearing, knowledge, and detachment. Om Jnanatimrindasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshurumritamena Tasmai Shri Guru Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Sthapitamena Bhutale Swayam Rupakadamayam Dadati Swapatantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shritapatakamanam Shri Gurun Vaishnavangsha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sagana Raghunathan Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savaditam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vijakan Vitamsha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namastate Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Bhrishavanusute Devi Pranamami Haripriya Vanchakalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Vacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavibhyo Namo Namah Namo Vishnupadaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vikasa Swami Niti Namane Namo Vishnupadaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Niti Namane Namaste Saraswate Devi Gauravani Pracharine Nirvisesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srivas Adi Gaur Bhaktivinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Jnananandamayam Devam Nirmala Spatikākriti Madharam Sarva Vidyanam Hayagrivam Upasmahe Guru Vaishnava Bhagavanti Nirasmarana Hoy Vigna Vinashana Nayasya Hay Nija Vanchita Purana. So continue discussions here. Vidura approaches Maitreya. That here we're discussing just finishing after the Lord's pastimes. Here now we're starting to begin to discuss the exchanges that go on between Vidura and Maitreya, as Uddhava tells Vidura to approach Maitreya because he is more senior, and that is his rightful duty to point Vidura towards Maitreya. even though he himself was full of knowledge in these aspects. And we'll see later how Vidura approaches Maitreya in a very humble attitude, pretending like he doesn't know anything. And so we can see the mood and attitude of Vidura, how he's pleasing by his mood to the devotees, so they direct him to other devotees who will guide them properly. So here we're going to see that pastime unfold. But here Uddhava is starting to describe where he's going, what he's doing. And we learned that in the 11th canto. Now we're a little bit earlier on in the 3rd canto. But we see throughout the Uddhava Gita, as Srila Prabhupada says, this is a very intimate conversation between Uddhava and Krishna. Now Arjuna and Krishna are also intimate, but this is the level of affection between Uddhava and Krishna is even, you could say, higher. So here there is when you read through this Uddhava Gita, you'll read very similar philosophy to Bhagavad Gita. But you'll see many things that are, it's in Bhagavad Gita, but Krishna will explain it more explicitly also. Very intimate dealings with Uddhava. And you'll see at the end, Uddhava's relationship with Krishna and how deep it is in the way that he actually expresses that Krishna is about to leave and he understands that. And Krishna asks him, you go to Badrikashrama. And he doesn't want to go. And he's so attached to the lotus feet of the Lord, he bathes, it's mentioned, it's very beautiful, and I'll never forget reading that. It was in Ram's house. I was finishing up Ram Abhiram Prabhu's house. And I was finishing up the Srimad Bhagavatam my first time around. And I remember particularly reading that section in where Uddhava is very intimately associated with the Lord, and he's suffering. And the Lord is telling him to go, and he doesn't want to go. And he's holding on to the lotus feet of the Lord, and he's bathing the lotus feet of the Lord with his tears. Just tears and tears and tears. He doesn't want to let go of the lotus feet of the Lord. So suffering, he's suffering. So here, this particular verse says, the Lord is the vanquisher of the distress of one who is surrendered unto him. And we learn that primarily, all over the Srimad Bhagavatam, but we see that primarily also in Prahlad Maharaj's pastimes. He specifically comes to destroy the distresses of Prahlad. But then you can ask, what is the distress of Prahlad? When does he express that, that he's distressed and I need help? He's always dependent on the Lord. He's thrown into oil. He's thrown up a cliff of a mountain. He doesn't care. He's not ever fazed. He doesn't say, well, I'm suffering, my Lord. Now please come and save me. You don't see that from Prahlad. He just says, well, I just want the benefit of these people. I just want to preach, that's all. I don't really care. And whatever happens, I'll preach anyways. You see that the mood of Prahlad. So the suffering of the devotee, or the distresses of the devotee, of a pure devotee. Now we could say we're practicing pure devotional service, and what is our distress? Oh, there's not enough prasadam, not getting enough sleep, not getting enough time to chant my japa, not getting enough time to read. Generally, it's our own fault. Not enough of this, not enough of that. I have this bodily issue, I have that bodily issue. So generally our distresses are, I don't like this particular person, I don't like to drive this particular car. It's so many things that we come up with as the distresses of our life. And so, coming from a place of the material ocean of distress, coming dukkhalayam ashashvatam, we're kind of attached to being distressed a little bit in this material world. So we're always looking for ways to how my situation is distressful. And therefore, I have all these problems. Because my situation, I have so much going on, all of my problems are because of that, not because of me. And we're distressed. Okay, look, I'm so distressed, therefore I'm acting like this. Oh, I'm so distressed, therefore I'm doing that. That is there. But we're, to a great extent in this material world, we're attached to being distressed. In material life, I can admit that there was a level of attachment to that, just being sad. Why? Because along with that comes the others, people come and look after you and say, oh, and you want to feel cared, and so you want to look distressed sometimes. You don't want to, but it's an attachment you have to being distressed, so other people will come and appreciate how you're distressed and, oh, I can help you. And and look after you and this and that. And then we come into devotional service, and then it's the same thing also. I mean, if you remember our Bhakti days, it's just like that. I remember I was just like, I would walk into my Bhakti leader's room. I would just sit there and I just what he's sad about. He was just like, because he's been practicing for years, and I'm just looking at him, and he's always happy. And I'm sad that he's always happy. If I had that you're sad because somebody else is happy. Like on book distribution, it's not that book distribution is bad or it's hard. Sometimes the other person is doing better, so you're sad. Yeah, it's messed up, right? It's pretty messed up. But that's how it is. And I recognized that one day. I was like, the only reason I'm happy right now is because everybody else is doing worse than me. And you go, and the only reason I'm sad right now is because somebody else is doing better than me. I'm bringing distress upon myself, actually. I'm attached to being distressed because I don't have to stress out. I can just continue my service, knowing that it's pleasing to Krishna. But I care. I want to be distressed because, I'm inflicting that upon myself. Oh, I have to be like this. I have to be like that. I have to show. And then if I'm not doing good, then I have to show that I'm sad, that I'm not satisfied just by distributing what I can do. By pushing the best I can and not being able to do that, okay, I'm still satisfied. So we're attached to being distressed in this material. But that distress is often of the material consideration, of a material circumstance or our material mind. And Uddhava expresses that also a little bit in the... Oh man, did I lose it here? Okay. He expresses that Prabhupada says that here, in the 21st verse in this chapter. My dear Vidura, now I am mad for want of the pleasure of seeing him. Just to medicate this, I am now proceeding to Badrika Ashrama in the Himalayas for association, as I have been instructed by him. A pure devotee of the Lord, of the standard of Uddhava, constantly associates with the Lord in double perception of simultaneous separation and meeting. The pure devotee is not for a moment unengaged in transcendental service of the Lord. Execution of Lord's service is the main occupation of pure devotee. Uddhava's separation from the Lord was unbearable, and therefore he started to Badrika Ashrama in obedience to Lord's order, because the order of the Lord and the Lord himself are identical. As long as one is engaged in the execution of the order of the Lord, there is no factual separation from him. Sorry. There is another section here in the 11th canto. Did I lose it? 11th canto, 7th chapter, 18, text number 18. So that describes some of the distresses of Uddhava. But here, Uddhava describes his own distress. What does he say? He says, therefore, O Lord, feeling weary of material life and tormented by its distress, I am now surrendered unto you, because you are the perfect master. You are unlimited, all-knowing Supreme Personality Godhead, whose spiritual abode is Vaikuntha, is free from all disturbances. In fact, you are known as Narayana, the true friend of all living beings. Now, we can understand by Uddhava's situation, and actually in the purport, if you go down, all the way down to the last paragraph, Uddhava describes his personal situation as nirvinna dihi or vrijnabhitaptaha. In other words, Sri Uddhava stated that he is exhausted and discouraged by the contradiction and anguish of material life. He has been forced, therefore, to become humble and surrender to the lotus feet of Krishna, the personal friend of every living entity. In the material world, a great man does not have time for insignificant men. But although the Lord is a great person, he sits in the heart of every living entity. Thus, he is most merciful. Lord Krishna is the ultimate shelter of even Nara, or the Lord's Purusha expansion, who creates the material world. The living entity is called Nara, and the source of the material situations is Nara or Mahavishnu. Nara, and the source of the material situation is Nara or Mahavishnu. So the word Narayana indicates that even Mahavishnu finds shelter in Krishna, who is certainly supreme. So, although our consciousness is presently contaminated by sinful propensities, if we follow the example of Sri Uddhava and take shelter of the Supreme Personality Godhead, Krishna, everything can be rectified. Taking shelter of Krishna means taking shelter of devotion service to Krishna and obeying him. Lord Krishna demands this in Bhagavad Gita. And if we comply with the order of Lord, our life can become fully auspicious and successful. Sooner than we expected, we may, by Krishna's mercy, enter the kingdom of God for an eternal life of bliss and knowledge. So, we can see now, obviously, Uddhava is playing out the pastime of being distressed and expressing this, as we see from our own acharyas and so many other great pure devotees of the Lord. But a point is being made here by example that when we are under distress, even we are attached to our being distressed in this material world to some extent, that one should take shelter of the Lord. And Srila Prabhupada says, what does that mean? He says, that means to take shelter of the devotional service of the Lord. Sometimes, like I'm saying, book distribution, it causes us distress sometimes. If you, especially those beginning days of book distribution, it's like, what am I doing? I'm out here for 6 hours. I distributed one small book. Somebody gave me $2 because they felt bad for me. I have a picture of that still. It's really sad. And this one Mataji at the beach. I think I showed that to you. I'm like standing there, I'm like, it looks sad like anything. And I'm giving her the book, and I remember her very clearly. She gave me $2, and that was the happiest moment of my day at that point. But it's just like, what am I doing out here? The distress, it's like so hard. You try again and again, and it doesn't go out. And then generally the difference here between a devotee and we can understand our level of advancement in devotional service is under that distress, we take shelter of our material desires. We allow our material desires to come up again. But those who are pure devotees of the Lord, or those who are devoted, don't have to be a pure devotee, those who understand the process of devotional service, they take direct shelter of that same service that seemingly causes them distress. Because it's not the service that causes us distress. It's our own mind that causes us distress. It's our own inability to recognize the importance of that service and the nature of that service and to perform that service. And understand the nature of devotional service. Not have exactly a fruitive mentality of, unless I do this many numbers of books, or make this many number of devotees, or make this number of preparations, that is what's pleasing to Krishna. If we've read and understood, we understand what's pleasing to Krishna, and therefore we push more to do more under that idea, not under the idea just to do more. But generally, when we undercome some distress in devotional service, whatever service it may be, book distribution or cooking or cleaning or going out and doing service of recruiting devotees or such and such, generally if that service is not working out for us, we immediately look for another situation. That's our position. Oh, where can I go? What else? What other service can I do? But this is not, Prabhupada is saying one should take shelter of that. We should see that, okay, also it's appropriate for our, that is not, it's not going too far with it. But in speaking in general, that one should take direct shelter of that same service. He should take shelter properly of that service, of the devotional service to Krishna. So by doing that, one starts to rectify his consciousness from material consciousness to spiritual consciousness, to Krishna consciousness. So the distress that is being experienced in this material world, or in this atmosphere of material existence, is coming from the conditioned nature of the jiva to try to enjoy separately from Krishna. And we have to recognize that. We should never consider a service to be the cause of our suffering. Then we have a complete misunderstanding of devotional service, philosophically and practically also. So then what are you doing? Then you're not understanding properly. Then what is your position in relation to coming up in devotional service if you can't recognize what is the nature of devotional service and how we should actually perform it? So it's important to start to understand. And this distresses, even though that in this section here, the Lord is the vanquisher of distress of one who is surrendered unto him. Thus he who desired to destroy his family, desired to destroy his family, told me to previously to go to Badrikashrama. So this is the nature of material distress, but we understand that is illusion in the sense, well, it's temporary, and that it is caused by the identification of this body, the mind, and the material intelligence. And this is a level of suffering or level of distress that's caused in our lives as a result. And it causes us disturbance in devotional service. It causes us to, sometimes it goes so far to take us out of devotional service because that attachment is anartha, is unwanted. and we're not willing to let go of that attachment, then as Mukundadatta Prabhu was relating to us, then you have to go along with that attachment. And that means going back into the material world, living there, associating. Now that's real suffering. That is suffering. But there's a higher level of suffering. If we are attached to suffering, then there's a higher level of suffering. You really want to suffer, then there's much, 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 much higher level of suffering. Because this is illusion, identification with this body illusion, so the suffering is also illusion. But there is suffering on the spiritual platform. But that suffering is not exactly the nature of material life, where it causes us, where there's pain, but it's not exactly that. There's a great level of bliss derived from this suffering. So we see that Uddhava, he was suffering. He was suffering. But he wasn't suffering like he's saying now, I'm suffering from material this, but that's not, he's in association with Krishna, his loving relationship with Krishna, his humility is coming out, and we can understand that by reading that and hearing that. But we can understand that he is suffering though. Not that he's not suffering. He's suffering from what? He's suffering from the separation from the Lord, the vipralamba bhava. Sambhog and vipralamba, there's the meeting and the separation. Out of the two, Acharya says the vipralamba bhav, that is even higher. Why? Why is it higher? Why is it higher? Why is vipralamba bhav higher? It's intense. It's really intense. We've had that experience in material life. Material suffering is intense, and we know that. I was just in Guru Puja, I was remembering being in university for like a flash moment. It still happens to people? I don't know, it happens to me. I don't know if it happens to you, but nightmares. Sometimes when I'm just like performing service, like the whole memory of like being in this lecture hall in statistics in my third year of university with all these other people in there and looking at the teacher as he's writing and thinking, what the hell am I doing? Just like going from class to class, home to school. It's just like this disgusting taste in my mouth when I think about that. And it's just like, and then you're in Guru Puja and then you're back in Guru Puja all of a sudden, and you're looking around, and you dance, and you're like, oh my God, yeah, I'm in the spiritual world, why not dance? So the suffering of material life is real, and remember, if you try to, when you come to devotional service and you come in association with devotees and you remember that, you're like, whoa, yeah, that was pretty rough, and then even that was a normal day. But then what to speak of when you go through all of these torments of having a relationship with the opposite sex and all of these things? What to speak about that? So much pain is there. But that pain is nothing actually. So here, Uddhava, he's experiencing distress and separation and real pain in reality on this platform of spiritual existence. It's actually real. So actually, there's a lot of pain that Krishna is left. Krishna is left, his dear friend, the one his very close friend, who he understood to be also Supreme Personality Godhead. But more than that, it was his loving relationship with Krishna, the loving affection with Krishna, the complete attachment to Krishna without any sort of consideration. That was being left. Krishna is leaving. How can one tolerate? And we can understand with some glimpse in our lives, just like even here when our spiritual master comes and he leaves, there's a hole. It's like, oh, it's like for specifically devotees like Mitravan Prabhu and myself and some of the devotees who had never really met Maharaj. I think me and Mitravan Prabhu got initiated, but we'd never met him before. We've been aspiring from him for 2-3 years, never met him before, got initiated on Zoom. And then finally we met him only 2 years ago. And it was like, whoa, okay, this is what it means to be in the presence of a spiritual master. But then for the spiritual master to leave again, there's a great deal of separation. There's a great deal of separation. Oh, the presence, we could feel it. He's here and life is like, whoa. you're on a different level. The kirtans are on a different level. He would say, yeah, Krishna life's kirtans, it's more and more blissful. And he's saying, yeah, because you're going out on Harinam. I say, no, Maharaj, because you're here. You know, because you're here. You're increasing the bliss by your presence. So the bliss of the devotees when Krishna is around, when Krishna is playing in the forest, when Krishna is performing his pastimes, how much there is. And then when he leaves, it's like, whoa, what a grave situation that is felt in the first canto of the Srimad Bhagavatam. The whole earth, she undergoes a whole depression, basically. You know, the leaves no longer change colors, or the flowers no longer have a smell, and everybody's depressed. The whole earth is depressed completely. Don't want to produce anything. That's like that in our lives also. When somebody leaves, you'll see this in materialists also. When somebody leaves completely, if you're attached to someone really deeply, your mom or your dad or your wife or children, especially children, when they leave, it's like your whole world ends. Your whole world ends, basically. You can't think of anything on the other. How does life go on? You think like that. When somebody leaves your life that's very dear to you, you think, how will life go on? You can't see, almost. You can't see next day. It's like you forget it. Like you feel like that's why we have this ritual of sati. Sati is that the wife, she feels so much separation from the husband, she doesn't see any other existence without him. Nothing, forget it. The pain of the fire on my external body is nothing compared to the fire of separation I feel within my heart. That is there materially even. When there even is a material relationship between one body and another, it is ultimately being exhibited from the platform of the soul, but it's, of course, with a covering to it. But that separation, the pain of separation, is very, 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 very large. It's very inconceivable. People would die from separation. That there's a whole science done on it. That if if their feeling of pain is so intense, there is certain tendons or certain muscles in the heart that tear, and you die, and it causes you to die, to leave the body. But how can you, scientists, it's just feeling though. How can that have an influence on your physical body? Just a feeling. Can't understand. So Uddhava, now this is on the platform of real, obviously spiritual existence, reality. Now he's feeling pain. Now he's feeling the separation from the Lord. He's feeling complete separation, just like Radha Ashtami is tomorrow. And we'll hear from Vishnu Chitta Prabhu. And then you can hear this also Radha Katha, which has been going on for 4 years now. He started that 4 years ago. My God, how many lectures is it now? 30? 35? Some crazy number of lectures on just Radha Katha. So the separation of the Lord, and how the devotees of the Lord, when they are in separation, how they come together to pacify themselves. Otherwise you'll die. Otherwise you'll leave your body, just like we have in the Krishna book. Some of the gopis couldn't go to see Krishna. So it's mentioned that they just left their bodies, that's all. And then they took spiritual bodies to go and meet Krishna. So we would leave the pure devotees of the Lord, they would leave their bodies, but how do they pacify themselves? How do they pacify themselves? Well, we see in the Srimad Bhagavatam, when Krishna disappears from the rasa dance, the gopis, what did they do? What did they do? They started performing the pastimes. Actually, even later, when they say, we want to forget Krishna, forget this Krishna. He's just a menace. He's just like, he comes and teases us and tells us, promises us, tells us to come to the forest, did all of these things, and then just left, just dipped. What kind of person is this? We don't want to remember him. But then they're starting to perform pastimes of Krishna, and then pretending to be Krishna, and then performing these pastimes, remembering him like that. Even when you don't want to remember him, he's forcing himself into our minds. So the pure devotees of the Lord, they are very much attracted to the Lord, and even if they want to forget Him, they cannot. It's natural. How can you get rid of natural attraction? Therefore, when people come to Krishna consciousness and they leave, that'll never leave them. Actually, that pain in the mind will be there. Oh, I should have kept going. I should have, because you know the bliss of devotional service when you experience it. I hope I never end up in that circumstance, but I can imagine that if you ever leave the platform of devotional service, you're trying to enjoy the karmis, just like we still get flashbacks of material life, and you still get flashbacks of Krishna consciousness, and those are much stronger because those are happy moments. Material life is just distressful. But when you remember Krishna consciousness, when I remember Krishna consciousness, what do I remember? I remember just distributing books, chanting Hare Krishna, taking prasadam with the devotees, cooking for the devotees, cleaning in the temple. And we remember all of these moments every day. I mean, every day is like that. So like, how can you separate that? So those who leave devotional service, they also experience a level of separation. Oh, I should have kept going. I made a mistake. But their ego is too big to come back and say, I made a mistake, often. Or they enter back into illusion and think it was all a phase of my life. That's how they comfort themselves. It was just a phase where I got brainwashed and I got and I was just happy. And but I wasn't actually happy. But now I'm miserable. Now I will try to figure out how to be happy. But I'm miserable. But the devotees of the Lord, they're always remembering the pastimes of the Lord. So in order to eradicate that distress, like Krishna is saying here to Uddhava, you go. You don't stick around here. You won't be able to do it. You won't be able to bear that separation from me. You won't be able to bear that separation from all of my associates. Who's leaving? Arjuna is leaving. Yudhishthira is leaving. All the Pandavas are leaving. Krishna is leaving. So many other associates are leaving. So Uddhava, don't stick around. Just go. Go to Badrikashrama. My devotees are there. You go satam prasangam mama virya samvido. Bhavanti hit rasayana kataha. Discuss those pastimes about me. You go there and you discuss these pastimes. They will mitigate your distress. And therefore Krishna here is known as who is the vanquisher of distresses of the devotees. Not that the devotees experience some material distress. Therefore they don't pray, oh Krishna, give me, Sudama is not praying, oh give me this house and give me this is my distress. He's not praying like that. Sudama doesn't care. He's like, just like whatever. You look at him. What is he? He's Brahmana. He doesn't have, his body is like skinny. He's poor. What does he really have? He's not praying, give me this, give me that, because that's not his distress. He doesn't see that as distress. A devotee of the Lord doesn't see his bodily problems and the external problems, house problem, money problem, that problem, as distress. He doesn't see that as his problem of his life. He doesn't care. We have Vamsidas Babaji, example of that. Bhaktivinoda Thakur, Srila Prabhupada, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur. All of our acharyas. The primary example of that, they don't care for the external situation. The distress, what is Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur's distress? What does he see as the distress of this world? That people are not Krishna consciousness, that this Bhagavad Dharma is not being spread. That is the real distress. That the pastimes of the Lord are not being described. That is the real distress of the living entity. Not all of this food and this. Therefore he said, you just should be one book, one small book, and you've done more philanthropy than all of this, all of them combined together in this whole material existence. This is the same thing Krishna is speaking about, Bhaktisiddhanta is speaking about, Prabhupada is speaking about, Bhaktivinoda Thakur is speaking about. I'm not talking about some material distress. The real distress of the soul is not to be able to be eager to chant here, have knowledge, become detached, to not have these things, to not be able to understand or hear the pastimes of the Lord. That is real distress. So the devotees of the Lord, they see that as real distress. If I can't hear, what is the use of my life? If I can't read, what is the use of my life? Why? Because it's separation from Krishna, vipralambha. They're experiencing that. Therefore, they're always going on describing. Nityam bhagavata sevaya. Always, 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 always. Never stop. As Prabhupada said in this purport here, The devotees of the Lord, they never stop speaking about Krishna. The pure devotee is not for a moment unengaged in the transcendental service of the Lord. Never a moment in his life is he ever. Because for him, if he was to stop describing the pastimes of the Lord, then that sambhog, that association of the Lord is not there. And then he's feeling great pain and separation. What is it? I have no desire to live anymore if I am not able to hear and chant. And Bhaktivinoda says, I shall not go to any place that doesn't have devotion service. Even a holy place, I shall not go there if I cannot perform devotion service to my Lord. So the devotees of the Lord, without being able to describe the pastimes, without being able to spread and discuss it amongst devotees of the Lord, there is no other life for them. There's no other life. There's no other existence for them. That is their only way of going on living while manifesting their pastimes in this world. Otherwise, once they feel okay, that's it. I'm done, and they can leave whenever they want to. But they want to propagate the hearing and chanting of the Lord in this world. And they become satisfied by that. That all of that hankering after the association of the Lord is completely satisfied by hearing Srimad Bhagavatam. That's why all of the sages assemble. That's why Shukadeva Goswami, everybody's listening from Shukadeva. Why? And, because not that he is a great scholar, of course, but because he's able to give the pastimes of the Lord in a pure way. He's pure devotee of the Lord. And they're all coming and sitting together. They're not fighting him. Oh, look, he's younger than us. Make him step down. Actually, Vyasadeva should go and speak. Or all of these Narada Muni is there. He should maybe speak. All of the sages, all of these great sages practicing for so many years are coming and sitting and hearing. Why? Because they see, oh, this is very pleasurable. This is very pleasurable to hear. It's satisfying our hankering and our separation from the Lord. It's allowing us to meet the Lord. Just like in the pastimes of the gopis, we hear that the Lord played his flute and he stole their hearts by entering through their ears in the form of sound. It's mentioned like that. The Lord is, he's Hari, one who takes your heart by his holy name, Hari Nam. He enters through our ears, and he goes and sits in our heart, and Cheto Darpana Marjanam, and then he cleans it. And then he allows us to become attached to him. That is the amazing part of devotional service. And Prabhupada is saying that, he was saying that here, in this particular section, that the Lord, he's the greatest of persons. Generally, when you're a great person, you don't really care for the insignificant living entities of this world, to know them, who they are. And they may say, and they come and they be superficially nice and then go away. They never remember you again. Like you have this experience when you worship someone like a superstar, and then you go and meet them, and if you feel like you have such a deep relationship with them, and like, wow, I feel like if I ever met this person, I'll really connect with them and all of this. You go see them and they don't really care, and you can feel that from them. And isn't it? I don't know if anybody's met that, like your role model of life, and you actually met them in real life. And it doesn't satisfy you. It's empty. It's like, oh, I thought this would be deeper than that. And you're kind of like, oh, okay. And it's like really like, oh, it's really shocking. It's like, oh, that's it. But Krishna is not like that, Prabhupada is saying here in this 11th canto, 7th chapter. That in the material world, a great man does not have time for insignificant men. But although the Lord is a great person, he sits in the heart of every living entity. Thus, he is most merciful. Lord Krishna is the ultimate shelter of Nara, or the Lord's Purusha expansion who creates the material world. So the Supreme Personality of Godhead, he is the greatest of all persons, but he's close to every single living entity. And we're insignificant. We're so small, it's unimaginable. In comparison to him, we're so small. But he gives us his time. He's ready whenever we need. He's been with us even when we don't appreciate or even recognize him. He's still there. He's still there with the jiva, standing next to him, like the analogy is given in the Bhagavatam of the two birds on the tree, just waiting, patiently waiting. When will this jiva take shelter of me? When will he recognize my supremacy? When will he recognize that actually all of his shelter that he's taken in this world is completely useless? That I am his only shelter, and I am the only thing that he's close to. Everything else is a big, superficial arrangement, illusory and temporary arrangement of the Lord. When will he recognize this? So the Lord is patiently waiting in their heart. So when the living entity starts to actually hear about the Lord from a bona fide spiritual master, he starts to develop proper attachment to the Lord. Now, detachment is being mentioned. Detachment from material life comes about automatically. But he starts to, when he hears about the Lord, that level of the real distress of the living entity being separated from the Lord starts to become satisfied. And naturally all of the distresses of material life is not significant anymore, because you realize what the real distress of your life is. Anytime you can ask any devotee that's practiced for a long time, what is the secret? He said, hear and chant attentively. And that's the only reason you experience distress. That's the only reason. When you forget that, that is the essence of everything, then you care about so many of these material distresses, because you think that's the problem you have to solve. So our problems arise from our ineagerness or inability to be attached to hearing and chanting. So to the extent that we increase our attachment, that may not exactly mean increase our hearing and chanting, may not particularly mean that number of rounds and number of hours of reading. But it means that we increase our attachment towards that. We want to do that more. We want to make sure we're consistent with it. We're attentive when we're reading. Like who was saying before, you can go on reading day in, day out, 3-4 hours a day. But then it's like, but by your behavior, it's seen clearly, like, what are you hearing? What are you reading? It's like you can do so much reading, and you can chant 32 rounds and 64 rounds and 128 rounds. But then by your behavior, it's shown actually it's all superficial. And it's like you hear so much, but then you go and play basketball. Like, what the hell? What are you doing? You hear so much, or you read so much, and you go and eat karmi grains. What happened? You read so much. You're meant to be Krishna conscious, but you're eating that form of food, which is the personification of demoniac culture, demoniac consciousness. What happened? So it's not particularly about who chants more and hears more, but who is doing the process properly. Who is actually performing the process with proper sincerity, with proper guidance. So the Lord is asking Uddhava to go in the association of devotees. Why? Because in that association, we can learn to do those things properly. We can learn to hear about the Lord properly. We can see by direct perception what it means to be attached to hearing of the Lord. Because it can be all philosophical when you read, okay, you have to be attached, but then we see in our lives, it's like, oh my God, when is this going to come about? But then we meet people who are exalted in their service, who have been performing this for years and years, and they've actually, deeply considered. We've also seen people who've been performing for years and years, and it's like, what happened? Still attached materially, like extremely attached, more than you see materialists attached. You're like, oh, at least some materialists, you'll see they'll grow old and they'll go, you know what, I've had enough, and then they'll get in some sort of van and just travel and just live like whatever. But then we see sometimes devotees, and they're old, but then extremely attached still to the idea of building a beautiful material life at the age of 60, 70, 80. Get married at the age of 70. So, as my spiritual master was saying, even he was saying that sannyasis are meant to be renounced, but then we can recognize that even some Mayavadis, but then even some Vaishnavas are more attached than Mayavadis. So it has to be seen. So it has to be seen that we are chanting and hearing properly, in proper association. How do we judge the association? By the actions of the devotees, by their attachment to hearing. Just like I know when I see my spiritual master, oh my God, okay, that's what it looks like to be attached to hearing and chanting. Vishnu Sahasranam, 1,000 names of Vishnu. You can describe. You can go on for 12 years just speaking about that, and you can give 40 lectures on one name. It's like, that's a lot. I'm like, it's hard for us to hear almost. It's like we're not attached to that. Like, oh my God, this is a lot. But for him, it's like I can do more, but I have to otherwise I won't be able to finish these names. We can see and how they behave, how they act. So in the association of devotees of the Lord, we can learn what is a proper fructification of hearing and chanting. And on that basis, we can go. Then we're headed in the right direction when we can see, okay, this is making proper progress. Then we can move. Taking shelter of them. So therefore, devotional service of the Lord is always done in association of the devotees of the Lord. Because without that, there is no advancement. Sadhu Sangha, Sarva Shastra Khoy. Sadhu Sangha Lava Matra, Sarva Siddhi Hoy. That by moment association of the sadhus, one can get perfection. And this is what all of the scriptures speak about. And so this is how the Lord mitigates the distresses of His devotees. He brings them in association. He gives the Srimad Bhagavatam. He gives the Bhagavad Gita so they can discuss His pastimes. He descends into this world to enjoy His pastimes. And so the devotees can go on just churning that nectar. And therefore Srimad Bhagavatam is that nectar that we're churning. And the more we churn it, the more sweeter it becomes. Rasamalayam. It's very sweet, unlimited level of sweetness. Therefore, Krishna gives us this association. Guru Krishna Prasadi Pai Bhakti Lata Bija. By the mercy of the Spirit, by the mercy of Krishna, we get Guru. Who's the Gurus? The Vaishnavas are our Gurus. They're our teachers. They're our shelter. We have our own, of course, Diksha's, spiritual master. But in reference here, that association is our guidance of our life. That is the main trunk of the tree of devotional service. So in that verse comes, I quote it every other time and then forget it, that the beginning of devotional service is done in association of devotees. Even after liberation, after one attains love of Godhead, it still remains the root or the main trunk of devotional service. What is this verse? Madhya Leela, something. Anyways, I'm not going to remember it. But this is a verse that comes in the... If we get the beginning of it, it's like easy. No. Yeah, Mula. Bhakti Mula. Something Mula has, no?
Hai Sadhu Sangha.
Yeah, Krishna Bhakti Janma Mula is Hai Sadhu Sangha. So that actually Krishna Bhakti, this devotion to Krishna and attachment to Krishna is born by the association of course it's there, but it's awakened again. It is Mukhya Anga. It is the Mukhya means like the mouth, you can say, or like the top. It is the most important part of devotional service, and it remains that even after love of Godhead. So even amongst the association of the gopis, that association is top, because how are they keeping themselves going? By discussing these pastimes. Radharani, she's doing that. When the bumblebee comes, they're always talking about Krishna. They're always discussing about Krishna. When Krishna leaves, they become completely stunned, but how do they maintain themselves? By their association. They come together to hear pastimes of Krishna. It's not that the gopis, they don't do that. Now you're on the highest platform of devotional service. Now you don't have to hear about Krishna and all of that. But it's symptomized by that. How the gopis are so attached to hearing about Krishna. They want to forget him and they can't. So this is the separation and this is the distress a devotee feels when he comes to devotional service. When he gets rid of the idea of this material body, I am this material body, my mind, my this, my that, my me, my myself, and I'm the center of everything. When he gets rid of this and makes Krishna the center of his life, he realizes his real distress is not hearing enough about the Lord, not serving the Lord enough, not associating with the devotees of the Lord enough. Sometimes it's like that. It's like, man, I don't have time. I don't have enough time to be able, I want to associate with them more. I want to read more. I want to chant more. I want to serve more. I want to distribute books for longer than this, but the body won't allow. Or like a situation in the atmosphere won't allow also sometimes. It just dies. It's like, oh damn. But that desire is there. I want to serve. I want to serve. I want to serve. So that should increase as we go on. It should increase. And then our external situations. And sometimes you look at, I'm like, man, if I was in this situation like 7 years ago, I would think like, damn, life sucks right now. But then devotional service should take that away, and we should think, oh, it's nothing. I've seen my spiritual master like that. Externally, he's playing the pastimes of having so many difficulties. This time he didn't have to go anywhere, but last time there was so much of this. Doctor had to come and look, and the doctor was saying that the level of pain that he's experiencing is like it should be in the hospital. But you look at him, he's dancing in kirtan right here, he's chanting in bliss. I'm like, whoa, that's significant. It's something to learn from that. That helps us seeing that directly. Us and say, oh, I should do that too. I should follow in the footsteps of the Acarya. So it's very helpful. And so the more attached we become to hearing and chanting, the more we'll become enlivened in devotional service. The more we'll become attached to Krishna, the more we'll become attached to devotional service, attached to devotees, the less you'll have problems in your life. You'll have no problems in your life. Okay, I'll end my class there. If there's any questions or comments, please feel free to ask. Yes.
Here it's very significant in this verse that Krishna recommended Uddhava to go and associate with the devotees at Badrikashrama to mitigate his distress. And you're emphasizing about that in so many ways in the class. And just like one has to develop attachment towards hearing and chanting, one has to develop attachment to staying in the association of devotees. Actually, if we have attachment to staying in the association of devotees, then there's hope for developing attachment for hearing and chanting.
Yeah.
But it's like, and it doesn't matter how one's nature is, whether one is extroverted or introverted and all these kind of like, oh, my nature, and this and that. Many times we get hung up with these kind of like things, and then we cite those as reasons that, well, for me, when I'm distressed, because of my nature, I have to do this, but that thing that they want to do it's different from associating with devotees. It's like, no, it's like, it's not my thing, it's my thing. I have to like, I don't know, go sit in a corner and face a wall or something, or stare out into the horizon. But actually, the mitigation of all distresses happens actually when one is attached to the devotees. It doesn't matter what one's nature is. Whatever one's nature is, you have to, the living entity's innate nature is to love Krishna.
Yeah.
And when you love Krishna means love his devotees also. And it's a strange concept, which is actually detached from the actual understanding of devotional service. Otherwise, there would not be so much emphasis on association. There is not so much emphasis that we all have to sing beautifully, for instance. Because yes, that's a nature. Yes, okay. If you don't have the ability to sing very beautifully, it's not that if you cannot sing, you're not a devotee. Like... so that nature is accepted, but this concept that somehow we have to build 5 walls around us or something like this, especially when we're distressed, this is a wrong idea, and that without palpable attachment to devotees. Actually, that lack of palpable attachment towards devotional service is a sign of immaturity, and the converse is also true, that attachment towards associating devotees is a sign of being very advanced.
Yeah. You have to be told that. It's nonsense. Nonsense introvert and extrovert. Or like, I'm an extrovert, whatever that means. But like nonsense introvert, I'm introvert, so what? And so we're going to kill you or something? It's like, what are you going to do? Then dadati pratigranati guhyam akyati prachati. Then where does this come? And you disobey the orders of Rupa Goswami. No, I need to be... Okay, there's like, obviously, but like you're saying, like when the situations come about, we should take direct shelter of the devotees of the Lord. Then there is a level of contemplation in one's own time also, but it's not that. It's like we completely avoid association, we run away to some, like you're saying, corner. And it's a material conception of life, and then we take shelter of that, and then expect to overcome that. And you may overcome it, and tomorrow you may be fine. But on the long run, you're not going to be fine. Because you take shelter of your mind, and then you'll take shelter of your mind one day, and the mind will tell you, leave the association of devotees, and then nicely go, that's all. So it's really important. I've gone through that. It's like my own situation. It's like, it's one day away from just leaving the association of devotees. But something, somehow, rather, in mercy of the devotees in Krishna, it's like, stick it out. Somehow, one night away from just dipping, not telling anyone, and it's going. In the Brahmacharya ashram here in Atlanta, like years ago, not like some freaking 10 years ago or something, but like actually going through that. But it was so stupid. It was so dumb. I look back, that's why I speak about suffering so much, because I suffer a lot. But looking back at that time where I was just taking shelter of my own mind, and I poured among suffering to myself. I could have just mitigated the whole thing just by going, what the hell, let me just go and talk to these devotees, and take their advice. And just take their advice, like stop taking it. It took me 4 months, what took a day for a devotee to do. And I didn't even overcome it, the devotees helped me overcome it. 4 months, it's just like suffering, taking shelter of my mind. And then a devotee just comes and says a few things, and I remember, I don't know who was giving that class. Somebody said like that, and it hit me that day. He said, the only reason you're suffering is because of your own mind. And that solved everything. It's like, and then I read another thing in Prabhupada's books, the one particular line that sticks with me all the time. The only reason one undergoes anxiety is because he doesn't know the ultimate goal of life. Like, it kind of just hit. It's like all of these months of just like suffering like really bad, and really bad. It's just like, it just cannot be underemphasized, the association and shelter of having devotees. It can't. They can overcome all of our problems, just like Krishna. He carries what we lack and preserves what we have. The devotees are a representation of Krishna. They do the same thing. Don't think it's just you have to approach Krishna and that's it. That's a misunderstanding also. We do approach Krishna, of course, but we approach him through his devotees, and they preserve what we lack and carry. They preserve what we have and carry what we lack. If you haven't noticed that in your life, there's a problem. If you haven't noticed that the only reason that you're here is because the devotees have advised you, made sure that your qualities are like properly being nurtured, and make sure that those bad qualities are not being nurtured and they're being destroyed, and brought you up and taught you so much, and you disregard that, then it's a problem. Then you take shelter of your own mind, then it's a problem. Then you have to go through some crazy level of suffering. It's like, God. But it's okay to go through the level of suffering sometimes, because you should learn out of that. Now after, I'm not going to do that again. I know that. It's like when I have a problem straight away, I know what to do because of that, because it's foolishness of my own. But it's just like, don't be foolish. Don't, like, my God, imagine I left the association to do it. I would be some karmi in Australia working at a school teaching students maths and physics. Maybe. What the heck, a miserable life. But instead, I'm sitting here amongst this amazing association, the best in the world, you could say, arguably, and just what are we doing? We're chanting, dancing, we're having a good time, and the spiritual master is pleased. What else is the goal of one's life? And it's like, I can say it's just like, we're dancing. It's like, wow, man, what a life. What the hell? And I'd rather die than do that now, God. So, yeah, it's like, you can't underemphasize it. You can't realize how important it is. We still haven't realized how important it is. So, yeah, it's a lot to it. I can speak about that for unending association of devotees, the importance. Everything comes from it. Mukhya anga, it comes from, we're born out of that. Okay, sorry. So, is there anything else?
Prabhu, you're talking about leaving the association of devotees. I just heard this past time where one of Prabhupada's disciples left, and Prabhupada was making so many arrangements to go and see his disciple. And when he finally met the disciple, he was telling him, "What have I done? That you've left our society, what have I done?" Prabhupada cared so much that he was crying for this disciple. And still he was, like you were saying, like, one's false ego was too strong. And Prabhupada said, well, yeah, he's just a rascal, but I like that rascal.
Yeah, I don't know how spiritual masters do it. I really don't, because, we have, so many disciples, they take shelter, they take initiation, they advance in devotion service, and then one day they just dip and never talk to the spiritual master again. They don't know what that's like. Those who do that don't know what that's like for the spiritual master. I mean, even whatever insignificant, bhakta bloops, is that remains in my mind every day, and remember that person every day. But what to speak of having a disciple that took shelter and was practicing for years and years. It's whew. And then that conditioned soul Maharaj speaks even about some, this researcher that was going to Bengal, and where was she doing history of Gaudiya Vaishnava, and she was reading about Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and then understanding Radha Krishna pastimes, and she was writing an article. She was a scholar, and she would wake up in the morning and she would think to herself, I wonder what Radha is doing now. And then she would, oh wait, that's his mythology. And Guru Maharaj cries and he says, so close, but so far from it. Huh? They were so close to it. And so it's I can't imagine the pain that the spiritual master feels thinking of his disciples that are not doing so well in their devotion service. Paradukha Dukhi, we learn from Srila Prabhupada's books that the Vaishnavas they don't have any distress. But they feel distress seeing the distresses of the materialist suffering, as Prahlad Maharaj gives us the primary example. So yeah, they can't understand the heart of a Vaishnava and then what they're feeling in their hearts. Okay, anything else? Okay, Ali Krishna Prabhu. Don't have so much time.
You're speaking about Guru Maharaj a little bit, and just because I've been fortunate to kind of see him a little bit, kind of behind closed doors, I guess you could say, in a more private setting. It's really mind-blowing to see he is always engaged in hearing and chanting. He doesn't waste a single moment, and he's always he goes through his emails, and then as soon as the emails are done, okay, read this out to me. And he's just always hearing something about Krishna or Prabhupada, and doesn't waste a single moment in that. And so it's not you might think that, the spiritual master is here and he puts on some kind of persona or something like that in public, and then behind closed, it's always on, always fully absorbed, and it's a symptom of pure devotee. They don't waste a moment.
Yeah, his computer, his laptop says, life is short, don't waste time. You seen that? It's nice. It's in blue and it's got white.
Yeah.
It's really nice.
Yeah, you can tell he's always he's so eager to hear and taste that. It's just
yeah. Abhimanyu Sutadas.
Yeah, I was just sorry. What'd you call it? Yeah, I was just reading 11th Canto which is really really sweet as well.
Always lamented Prabhupada didn't
Dude, that is like my favorite. Like,
always
you know,
lament about love scandal, like Prabhupada had written purport, so how did it?
But, yeah, I mean, it was Canon 11, chapter 29, verse 46. In translation is greatly fearing separation from him, for whom he felt such indestructible affection, which I thought was like indestructible affection. Uddhava was distraught and he could not give up the Lord's company. Finally, feeling great pain, he bowed down to the Lord again and again, placed the slippers of his master upon his head and departed. Like he was just so much relishing those last moments, he just couldn't bring himself, you know. But then in the purport it says, according to Srimad Bhagavatam, and that we're going to talk about this like in the next verse, but it says, while Uddhava was en route to Badrika Ashrama, he heard about the Lord's journey to Brabhas, and turning back and following Lord Krishna from behind, he saw the Lord alone just after the withdrawal of the Yadu dynasty. And then after being, again, mercifully instructed by the person of God, he felt his knowledge of the truth awaken, and then he left again. So it's just like he was so like much attached that, you know, after all of that, you know, after offering a bit, crying, it's like so much. Then again, he heard the opportunity to see the Lord again. You know, he still went. You know, he couldn't. You know, it's really amazing. And you know, I was just wondering, like, I guess Krishna had means to be kind of fried out because he gave him an instruction, you know, to do something. He's still like, what are you doing? You know, I told you to do this. But Krishna was so kind. You know, it's like, because there's that tendency, like with the spiritual master, you know, it's like, you know, he's telling you to do something. It's like, no, like, I just want to go like here and see you, you know, but the spiritual master has, like, you know, a vision, like, well, how you'll better serve, you know. But I just found that really amazing that, you know, Uddhava is experiencing that, you know, like, no, I don't care, you know. But yeah, it's really amazing. He can't leave the Lord. It's really sweet.
anything from the Mataji's? No. Okay. All right. Srimad Bhagavatam ki Jai, Srila Prabhupada.